right, I'm going to attempt to share my screen, and we'll start off with a couple of slides. I think we can probably start off, and I'll sort of give you an overview of what we've got going on in the CentOS CI infrastructure. And maybe we can work through how some of the other projects are doing their tests. And then I thought maybe we could go around and just sort of talk about where you guys are at in the process and how we can help from an infrastructure perspective. So I guess to start off, I can introduce myself. My name is Brian Stinson. I'm on the infrastructure team with the CentOS project. So we manage a number of things. I mostly work on the CI infrastructure and the community builds. Let's see if we can mute some of those. There we go. So you should be able to see my screen here. Is that correct? Should have a couple of slides up. Okay, perfect. Yep. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about what ci.centos.org is. Really, it's a big infrastructure project with a couple of different goals. We want to take a number of upstream projects, like Gluster, and another big tenant is RDO, and people like that who want to test on the CentOS Linux platform. We do that a number of different ways. And we'll talk about how all that works here in just a minute. What that gets for the upstream projects like that, someone who's coming in who isn't maybe not necessarily who hasn't had a relationship with the CentOS project before. You get your unit tests and all that stuff. You get that verification on CentOS for free. The third really big win that we get out of the ci.centos.org infrastructure is deliverables coming out of the special interest groups. Now that's something that we're working on here in CentOS land. It's people who can, groups of people who want to get together to deliver, a set of software, whatever that may mean. So we have the groups like the Storage Special Interest Group, the Virtualization Special Interest Group, who are working on projects like Zen and some of the stuff that feeds into the OpenStack platform. And those special interest groups can actually use the CI infrastructure to gate the release of whatever it is that they're releasing, so that if they send out a repository full of packages, the idea is that repository would have run through CI and CD before it goes out. And we do all of this for those different goals. We meet those goals by doing it on bare metal. So we have a whole bunch of CentOS 5, 6, and 7 machines that are available in a data center that projects can use for really whatever it is that they need. We do have a Jenkins front end that actually kicks off all of those jobs, and you can write your job definitions in Jenkins, which is pretty familiar to a lot of people who are working in continuous integration. We also have a place where projects can post any of the artifacts that come out of the CI run. So lots of people use this for their test logs, or if they end up building any sort of artifact in between during the test run, they can save that off and then keep that stuff around just for verification later on. So that would be things like packages, Docker containers, the test logs themselves, really anything like that. For a little bit of further reading, we have the CI infrastructure kind of described a little bit on the wiki, and you can go through the process there and see how that all works. We have a diagram that that kind of explains how some of this all works. So there's a number of different different services you can see here. We have the Jenkins master, which sort of controls all the way that the jobs all work. If you notice right there in the middle, that slave 01, that's a machine that all the projects have access to, and that's the workspace and basically just an SSH home directory that you can get to. So that's where you would put in your test fixtures and stuff like that. But the real tests actually happen on those bare metal nodes, just like I said. So Jenkins will actually call off and say, okay, it's time to start a test run. And then the test will actually itself go out and provision one of those nodes, one of those bare metal nodes, from our node provisioner called Duffy. So the way that works, each project is assigned an API key, and so like I mentioned, right now it goes through Jenkins. We have a couple of structured ways to do that. But really, if you wanted to jump in on the slave and try out some of the bare metal provisioning stuff, you can call Duffy directly. Each project is assigned an API key, and then that API key ties you to a particular session. So if you request 3 CentOS 7 nodes and then 2 CentOS 5 nodes, we need a way to make sure that that is going to people working on Gluster. Once those machines are actually provisioned and started up, and you get the host list for that, you actually have root access on the box to do whatever it is that you need to do. So your test harness can mess with the network config. It can change any of the packages on the system, install new repositories that that might contain newer stuff. Really, whatever it is that your test harness needs to run, you've got root on those boxes, so you can run your tests and then have them finish through. There's a little bit of reading that you might want to go through. Like I said, there's on the wiki, wiki.centos.org, you can find the description. If you go to that CI page right there, that should link you out to the other places that describe things like our architecture, like I just showed you. And then sort of we have a quick start guide that walks you through the general idea of how to get a job through the process. These other 2 links on the bottom here are sort of good to look at. The CentOS CI scripts, that's a sample job definition that was written. Basically, you just take that and copy and paste it into the Jenkins interface, and that will give you the structure to sort of get started with some simple jobs. And then the last link there is actually a client that was written for us. One of our users wrote that out, and basically he was looking for a way to have an easy way to request a whole bunch of machines and then return them back into the pool quickly. And so it's both a Python library and a command line client that's installed on our infrastructure that you can use. So for right now, yeah, go ahead.
So on ISC, you guys suggested we should use Jenkins Job Builder.
Yes.
To keep track of scripts and everything. How does it fit in here?
Yeah. So what I would recommend is starting off with the sort of an initial, really simple way of going through, and I'll show you a sort of a simple job and how that works here really quick. Jenkins Job Builder will come in later on when you want to scale out to doing a whole bunch of jobs. So I think I can probably pull up an example here in just a minute of what Jenkins Job Builder looks like. But basically, you would write these job definitions in YAML, and then those can themselves be checked into a Git repository, and that's how you would manage all of your tests and stuff. To begin with, I might suggest starting off just with the simple CI scripts thing. We ourselves are sort of working through what Jenkins Job Builder is going to look like for some of the other projects. So it'll be something that we'll definitely work together on as we go. So I think we can probably start off and show you a simple job. So this is one of the jobs that I wrote. There's a project in CentOS called CentPackage that is basically the client tool to interact with our build system, and I wanted to run the unit tests for that. So I created a job here in the Jenkins interface, and this is the job definition. You'll have access to this once we get the project onboarded and get you the credentials for all of that. But you can see there are a number of different options here that we can go through. The important part is down here at the bottom. So this is the build step in Jenkins. This is everything that's going to happen as part of the test. And if any part of this fails, we can that will notify Jenkins that we I think Did we lose you guys?
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, my screen just went blank here.
We can see your screen.
There we go. Yeah, so here we have, basically this is just copied and pasted from the CentOS CI scripts repository that I mentioned before. The important line is right here. So you can see we're doing a bunch of stuff to go through, and if you want to parse all this out, you can certainly do that. But basically, we're requesting a CentOS 7 node, and then running a file called run.sh, and that's a file that I just defined in my test harness that goes through and runs all of the unit tests. So what this is going to do is it's going to go out and get one of those fresh nodes, check out my repository, and then actually run the tests. And I can show you what a test run looks like. So if we look at the console output for this build, you can see that the job started and we were allocated this node right here, in17.dusty. And then it went through and did a whole bunch of installations to get Git installed and installed my dependencies. And then down here you can see that my test went ahead and passed. And so we got a green ball up here, which basically just denotes success. On the front page, one of the important things is we want to be able to show off the status of what everyone's doing. So we have these tabs across the top by project, and you can choose a number of them, or just come to the front page and you can see all of the things that are going on. So you can see that we have the core tests in here. Our T-functional suite ran, let's see, that would be, let's see if we can find the right one here. Yeah, we ran this T-functional test 8 days ago, and it succeeded. And that was probably something to do with the latest release. If you go on further down, you can see what the other projects are up to. Like libvirt has been going pretty well so far. Let's see, we've got some of the RDO tests that are actually running right now. So you can see some of the activity that's going on. If you're interested in looking at some of the multi-node types of deployments, which I'm guessing that Gluster will want to do eventually, the RDO guys are doing a really good job of actually orchestrating that. So they have a set of Puppet, or let's see, I think they're actually Ansible. They might have it's a set of Ansible playbooks that actually goes out, requests the number of nodes they need, sets it up in whatever configuration it is that they're testing, and then installs OpenStack on that across the different machines. So that's basically a really short rundown of ci.centos.org. Maybe we can take a minute and talk through the Gluster tests and see where we can help out in the beginning.
Okay. Yes, sure. We have already a Jenkins interface where we currently run our regression tests. So every code change that we make is pushed to Gerrit, and Gerrit starts a whole bunch of regression tests and things.
Okay.
This is something that we probably would not change immediately because it's our production environment, but we also would like to see more involved release testing getting done.
Sure.
So we have several tests that we would like to see to get included in Jenkins jobs in one way or form. And these include simple tests like making sure that the Gluster packages are installable on the latest CentOS environment after CentOS released updates.
Okay.
We also have a more complex test framework, which allows us to orchestrate a more multi-node testing and simulation. So that's something that we also want to integrate, and we will use the CentOS infrastructure with requesting the nodes, and then run this test framework over all those nodes, or well, make sure that the test framework knows about these nodes, and then all our tests in this framework will be run in a distributed way. So that's something MS is mostly interested in because he's the main developer of this test framework, and yeah, that's something he will mostly look into.
Okay.
There are other things that we would like to see. So there are things like XFS tests, which is a file system test environment, which we would like to see running on regular basis, to make sure that everything still functions as it should.
Sure.
And those are a little bit simpler to do. You can probably run them initially on a single host environment, so there's no need for the more complex multi-host setups, but you could mount local host Gluster volumes, run those tests, and see if we can manage to get that into this test infrastructure.
Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
great. So I think probably, like I said, the best thing to get started would probably be those single node. You hesitate to call them simple because testing is never simple, but
No, sure.
but those, if you start off with those initial tests at the very beginning, that sort of would allow you to use the simple job types that we have right now, and then definitely we can work together to to work on Jenkins job builder types of things for for when we want to do a whole bunch of tests in a number of different configurations. So you mentioned that you have a couple of test suites. How are those actually provisioned? Is there a harness that you guys have available already, or are you still working on that for across the different things that you want to test?
No, so for our regression tests that we have that are contained in the source tree, we have our Jenkins slaves already prepared, and they are ready to run tests. So they just do a git checkout of the whole source tree, including the current changes that needed to get tested, and they run all the scripts that are under the tests subdirectory. So that's a single host test at the moment, and each of those test scripts will configure a Gluster volume, start the volume, run the tests, mount the volume if they need to, and clean up after the test.
Okay.
So there's no provisioning of such done there. It's a source tarball installation that gets run.
Yeah, so we actually have that. If that's something that you guys are interested in looking at too, running on our infrastructure in parallel, we're also we have a couple of projects that are integrating with their Garrett instances, kicking off whenever whenever they push a release or do a commit or something like that. Again, probably the most mature project in ci.centos.org is the RDO project. You can see they have a number of jobs that are here on the front page that cover a number of different scenarios for them. So yeah, I do know for sure that we are integrating with their Garrett instance to run through some of their tests. Another question.
I'm pretty sure that we could do that as well and run them in parallel and see, for example, how fast these tests run on your machines, because our regression tests sometimes get overloaded quite a bit. Surely, when we get closer to a release, we get more patches coming in, and currently a regression test runs, I think, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and that's for each patch that we send. And these all run on virtual machines in rack space.
Okay.
And I understand you have real hardware, which hopefully makes things a bit faster.
Right.
So that would be one of the things that we would like to see, if there is indeed a performance improvement there, and if it's stable enough for us to use, then we might enable this as a faster solution for running the regression tests. So that's something we really surely want to experiment with.
Okay, great.
So Niels, just I think so. One thing I want to tell about the Duffy stuff. I mean, I pointed a link in the chat, so you guys can go through it. So I think Brian actually mentioned it. Brian, if you want to go ahead about the Duffy, tell them, go ahead, please. I think you have better understanding than mine.
Yeah, so we can, to sort of give you an overview of what Duffy does, let me head back to this diagram. So if you look at sort of the job life cycle, if you start off over here and think about, sort of the way that a job happens, we think about it in 4 different steps: the setup, provision, test, and replace. So Duffy handles the left-hand side over here, so the setup and the replace. Basically what it's going to do, Duffy is the API that manages all of these 256 bare metal nodes that we have available. So there's a pool out there. I think it's like 20 of them. So it's got 20 machines just ready to go, 20 CentOS 7 machines ready to go at a moment's notice. So you ask for a CentOS 7 machine, it'll give you one right back. What it's going to do, if you come back to my job definition, let's look at the output. So up here up above, the console output doesn't really show it, but I made an API call to Duffy and asked for a CentOS 7 machine, and it handed me back. It said, okay, you now have access to n17.dusty, and like I said, we have a number of these, but Duffy is what handles that. All of that access is done by project. So we have a few resource limits that we're going to start enforcing sometime soon, but yeah, once we get the project itself onboarded, you'll have access to all of those machines. So if you want to do the multi-node deployment, like Lala said, those are 32 gigs. I think, I'm pretty sure they have at least 240 gigs of storage. Let's look at the pub hardware page, because this is my external brain right here.
So is it possible for us to reserve a machine but have a disk not allocated so that we can format it or create an logical volume on it manually?
I think we can probably do that. We're in the middle of doing a whole bunch of feature work on Duffy. So basically, the back end are these C micro machines. So all of those nodes are actually in a single chassis, and they're managed by an API that we control. So basically, we have scripts that go through and say, okay, when you provision a node, it gets 4 interfaces in a single disk. I think we can probably work in a feature to help manage the disks. That's something that we'd want to work out with you guys. Let me make a note of that. So you'd want a single OS disk and then a secondary disk attached to the machine that's just completely unformatted. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So we have, for example, snapshotting in Gluster that requires the use of LVM, and in the background, Gluster will make LVM snapshots if you create a snapshot of the Gluster volume.
Okay.
So those things are definitely easier if you have a separate disk. I have no idea how and if it could work if you use the OS disk. It definitely gets something not in in a suggested environment, or yeah, it's not the real use case anymore then. So having a secondary disk, or even more secondary disks, that would be surely a requirement for some of our tests.
Okay. Yeah, I just made a note of that. Let me
Yeah, thanks.
let me look at that during our feature work, and we'll see what we can work out.
Okay.
So in terms of actually maybe something you can help me understand is how much of this work is going in through the storage SIG and how much is coming in through upstream Gluster itself. The reasoning behind that, I want to make like I said, everything is done by project. So we have, like I said, the RDO project, the libvirt project, all of that stuff. So I want to know which projects are best to onboard and who is sort of working on which ones.
Yeah, so for me it doesn't really matter because I'm both the upstream project and I'm part of the storage SIG. I do not know if others have a preference. So there are certainly some things that we would like to see getting done from the upstream project. So running on pre-releases and everything, but there are also some tests that we would like to see run on releases before we actually release those packages through the storage SIG. So there is some release testing involved for the storage SIG, but there is also some upstream Gluster testing that we would really like to see and try out.
Okay, great.
So it's a bit of both, and I don't really know who has preference for which.
From the upstream side, I think we'd be more interested in getting the multi-node testing to happen. So because we haven't been able to do any sort of multi-node testing, and that is where I think we'd like to get things moving quick.
Okay.
If we can actually run Gluster tests overnight, I mean with latest build of CentOS on top of with the latest build of Gluster FS every nightly, I think that would that would I think that would be great for both the projects. Upstream and the storage SIG as well.
Yes,
Sure.
so one of the things that we can do is we can build RPMs relatively easily from the Gluster sources. The spec file and everything is all contained in the upstream project. And I guess we can distribute those built RPMs over multiple nodes and then use our testing framework to run the tests on those multi-nodes. Is that difficult to do, you think? Or
No.
is it simpler to just do a git clone on all of the nodes, install them from sources, or build RPMs on each of the nodes, or whatever?
No, I think RPMs makes more sense.
We also want to test the RPMs themselves, right? So it'll make more sense. But yeah, we currently have our single node setup running relatively well in our the Gluster CI infra, but we don't have a way to run these multi-node tests there. So that is where I think that's where we'll be more interested. And yes, whatever makes it faster for us to set up the whole environment, right? Will be easier. So RPMs should be the way to go.
Okay, so that that basically answers the question for me. What I was looking for, I think what we'll probably do to begin with is go ahead and do 2 separate projects. So the way to do this, I am not sure if we have we done a request for the storage SIG yet? Lala, do you remember?
For creating a project in bugs.centos.org?
For actually requesting a CI project for the storage SIG. I don't think we've done that yet.
No, yeah, no,
Yes,
we haven't
I
done.
think we did. I'm pretty sure I got access.
All
So
right.
Yeah, there is a tab in the Jenkins infra or the Jenkins web UI that has Gluster on it, I think, or Storage SIG or something like that. There's no test in it though. Maybe you need to log in first.
yeah, we do have you guys onboarded. Oh, and that was created by me.
Yeah, and I think I'm the only one that has access at the moment.
Okay, so I think what we should probably do, let's go ahead and do a separate request in bugs.centos.org for the upstream Gluster project, and that'll be the place where anything related to the upstream work can go through. And then if we want to go ahead and hand out access to whoever it is that wants access to the storage SIG and all of that stuff, that'll go through that bug that we created to begin with. And I can find that in our issue tracker and send the link to you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
But what's the difference between that upstream and the storage SIG? Just the way you install the packages, right? Or is there any other major difference?
Well, so the upstream project in CI would most likely be where you would run your nightly tests from upstream Gluster. The stuff that goes through the storage SIG, that's where you would probably test the RPMs that are coming out of the community build system, the CentOS community build system, and then go ahead and test the repositories that you guys create out of that process. So there might be a little bit of overlap. I would imagine there'd be quite a lot of overlap, especially during release times and stuff. But the upstream project would be only focused on whatever's the latest out of the Git head. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. So basically, I mean, it's mostly the difference comes from the way where the packages comes from and how it's installed. That's all. I mean, if the test itself, like it should run on both should be able to run on both the projects. The test would most likely be common. I mean, as you said, there will be a lot of overlap, right?
Yeah, I would imagine there would be a lot of overlap. With the addition in the storage SIG that you would be checking the that would be where you actually do the package verification on whatever it is that the storage SIG is going to release. Whichever versions of Gluster the storage SIG is going to release, you test that plus the package set in under the storage SIG project in CI.
Yeah, so I see it as, for example, the tests that MS would like to run, the nightly tests of the latest or the current Git repository. Those would be upstream Gluster, but making sure that the Gluster packages from the storage SIG are still installable on the latest CentOS releases, that is part of the storage SIG. Also, the regression tests, if we integrate it with Gerrit, the upstream Gerrit, those are obviously part of the upstream Gluster project in Jenkins. Yeah, so anything that builds from source or builds the packages themselves is most likely upstream related. If we build the packages in the CentOS environment as a storage SIG, and these packages are marked as candidate releases, those tests after that are part of the storage SIG.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So yeah, but yes, several of those tests would be run on both sets. So our test framework should be dynamic enough or reusable enough that we make changes on one side of the test framework and make sure that those tests also get included in the next run for the storage SIG. Right. So MS, in case of die stuff, we probably clone the die stuff framework, clone die stuff tests, and run them. And those tests are not really part immediately of Jenkins, but they are part of the upstream die stuff repositories. So whenever we add tests there, they get run both in the upstream projects, but also on the storage SIG side of things.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense. And actually, I had another question, Brian. Do we have any limitation on the number of machines that we can request in a single, at one instance?
Yeah, so right now we have administrative limits set at 10 nodes per session. And that was just an arbitrary number that we picked. So keep in mind that for right now, the CI infrastructure is in sort of a pre-release type of stage. We haven't really shouted it, from the rooftops that we're doing this quite yet. And like I said, we're doing a little bit of feature work, and that's why we're wanting to work with you guys during this process, so that we can get in things like, dynamically adding disks and things like that. If you're running up against a limit, we can definitely work on setting the right threshold for that. But for right now, we're limiting the number of nodes to 10 per session.
Okay, thanks. We 10 nodes should be definitely enough to start with, at least. I don't think we don't have any problem with that. Thanks.
Do you have any other questions about the infrastructure or the project in general?
I don't have any questions, but I'm pretty sure I will have something, some questions when we start using it. So when we start using it, I'll probably query you a couple of questions.
Yeah, definitely. So we hang out in #CentOS devel on Freenode, and then once we also once we get you set up with your credentials and get the projects right and get everyone added to the project, you'll actually be subscribed to our CI users list. That's also a good place to collaborate with the other projects and see what they're doing. We've had a few discussions about how things work in the infrastructure and stuff, and we're happy to have those discussions one-on-one, IRC, on the mailing lists, wherever you can find us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Brian, what are the next steps that we should do to get our login details? And what is your advice on how we can work together on writing tests?
Yeah, so let's, I think the first step would probably be to, let's open up a bug in bugs.centos.org for the upstream project. And anyone who wants to collaborate on that, basically all we need is just your username and then an SSH pub key for you. That'll get you access to the slave and all that stuff. I'll go ahead and dig up the issue for the storage SIG, and anyone who wants to be part of that process, I'll have you add your SSH public keys to that bug as well. That just gives us a little bit of an audit trail to show who requested what at what time. So I think we can probably do that through the bug system there.
Okay, yeah, I can open a bug for the upstream project.
Perfect.
Yep, okay, I'll do that after the call.
Yeah, and I'll just manage that through the +1 process, which is pretty simple, and then we'll get that project onboarded.
So, hello, Brian.
Yes.
We are going to find the bug and fix them, or we are going to implement something new for the regression test?
So the regression tests are, I'm guessing that's something that you guys are going to work on together. What we're talking about right now is just a bug to basically just to create the new project in the CI system. So this is on our end for the infrastructure to get that all set up and get you guys added so that you have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all the bugs that we find in Gluster itself, they should get regression tests. So if someone finds a bug and they describe how this bug gets triggered, most of the times the developer fixes the bug and also writes a regression test, which is a shell script, and adds the shell script immediately when they fix the bug in the sources, because those tests are contained in the Git repository where the sources live.
Yes.
And these tests get executed for each source commit. But this is also something that we probably want to execute in the storage SIG tests somehow.
Okay.
So if someone finds a bug, we make sure to write a little regression test so that the bug doesn't pop up again.
Yes.
But for now, the bug we just discussed is, so because we can see it, the Jenkins interface of the CentOS project has a bug, and the bug is that there is no upstream Gluster project. So that's the bug I'm going to file. We already had a bug filed that there was no storage SIG project in Jenkins. Brian fixed that, but we still need to add users that want to contribute tests to the storage SIG. We need to add those users to the bug report, and we'll send some emails with the details that we need to do and which bug, where you want to add your username if you want to write test cases.
And What about scripting? I mean, can we add our own script to the project?
Yes, yes. So we need to decide what kind of tests go to which part of the infrastructure, because we have different locations where we have tests.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a test that you want to run,
Yes.
we should discuss this.
Mm-hmm.
You have to explain how the test looks like, what you want to test,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can advise you where this test is best located. If it is part of the upstream Gluster project, or if it should be part of the Storage SIG project that releases the RPMs.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
we got it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so get in touch with us and explain what you want to test, and we'll help you getting the test in a repository somewhere and
Okay.
make sure that it gets executed on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I was looking over the wiki page that you put up for the Gluster CI. I think that's a good. Yeah, you guys have a good setup in there. I think that would probably be a good place to sort of document some of the different tests that get run for the separate projects.
Yes, indeed. So I'll split that a little bit more and make sure that we have upstream Gluster testing and Storage SIG testing more separate, so that it's clearer which project we'll use in Jenkins and everything. So that should become more clearer after a while too.
Great. Yeah, so I think probably the next step in terms of actual tests and getting those running, if we want to get a few of those single node tests, actually into the Jenkins interface once we get everyone into the project. I think that probably would be a good start, since once we actually get your credentials in there and get you added and all of that stuff, you'll actually have full access to the Jenkins interface to create whichever jobs it is that you go ahead and create 10 jobs at the first time if you really want to, but you'll have access to go and add jobs as you need them. But again, like I said, if you want to start with the single node jobs and maybe some of the simpler ones, just to sort of get a feel for how the CI scripts work, and then we can go ahead and start the discussion about some of the features that we'll need for the multi-node deployments and some of the other stuff there. We can do that on the CI users mailing list if that's okay with everyone.
Okay, and Brian, so do we get these credentials before the Christmas holiday starts, or?
So I think we can probably do, depending on. So this has to go through our sign-off process. Basically, you request a new project, and we take it through some of the representatives of the CentOS project, and they say, okay, this is a good project. Let's go ahead and move forward with it. If we can get that bug in today, I can probably run that through and see if we can get the +1 and get you guys your credentials today. Otherwise, it'll be after Christmas before that happens.
Yeah, so I'll file the bug today, and when I've done so, I'll also ping KB that the bug's there, and you can judge if it's okay or not.
Yeah, great.
So when you wake up tomorrow morning, or I'm not sure what time it is for you now, but yes, if you then could have a look, then that should be probably best, and we can have our testing fun over the Christmas holidays.
Sure. Yeah, the storage SIG one, I think as long as we have the SIG chair just +1 all of those requests for people to be added, we should be okay to get those in at any time too.
Yeah, okay. So everyone that wants to be part of the group in Jenkins that wants to run tests need to update debug with their username and have their SSH key added, right? Once they've done that, one of these CentOS members needs to approve this, and then you can add these users to the infrastructure.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, so everyone who's joined now should make up their minds if they want to join the RPM testing that the Storage SIG is in charge of, or if they want to do the upstream Gluster testing, for example, nightly testing or regression testing or something. Once you figure that out for yourself, then you check the email that will send you in a bit, and you add your username with your SSH key to the CentOS bug report so that one of the CentOS members can approve it. Once we've done that, and if we manage to do that today, our time, then when Brian wakes up in the US, then he can make sure to add those users. So I'll send you an email after the call with both bug reports, and I'll repeat the steps as well that you need to take.
Yep, thanks, Niels.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, just one more question. So I missed parts of the beginning of this Hangout. Is this recorded? And can I?
Yes. Yeah, there should be a YouTube link to this that I will dig up, and I'll send that around to the email thread that we've been corresponding on so far. So you'll have a link in your inbox for the recording.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. And yeah, that's all.
Thanks all to you, all of you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks for coming
so thanks everybody, and Brian, thank you very much for joining at this hour, your time.
Sure thing.
I hope you can catch some sleep.
Yeah, I definitely will. We'll talk to you guys later.
Yes, talk to you guys later. Thank you.
Happy testing.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Okay, thanks.